Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I'll start right here. Let me run through some of Donald Trump's latest administrative moves thus far. I like some of these moves, won't lie to you. I truly do. There are some that I do not like, but there are many angles to this as to why some of these people I believe were picked. And there's one particular angle that I think is worth considering. Again, if there's a silver lining in some of these picks, it's the simple fact that these individuals work for the president. So if the president of the United States, Donald Trump, gives them a directive, they have to follow it. If he gives them a specified job to do, then they have to do it. I'm certain that some of these individuals he trusts perhaps more than others. There are some individuals, again, who are probably cheerleaders for Donald Trump and cheerleaders for one cause or another. Again, I'm not a cheerleader kind of guy. I don't think that that's necessarily the reason to hire somebody. But take, again, Pete Hegseth as a perfect example. What's interesting about this pick, and of course I think that it's personally kind of funny, but Pete is the kind of guy who will basically do whatever he's told. Again, he's been military to the bone. He's been Fox News to the bone. He'll go anywhere and do anything and say anything and whatever else. If he's given a directive by Donald Trump to fire a number of individuals, Pete's going to have to do it no matter what. And if Pete receives blowback from anybody regarding the particular moves that he's making because Donald Trump told him to make these moves, Pete might get a crash course in an education in who exactly is creating the pushback and why are they creating the pushback. Again, as defense secretary, you're going to have a lot of people working underneath you and around you. This is going to get real slimy, real quick. And he's going to, again, have to fire a bunch of generals and fire all the quote-unquote woke generals and the trannies and all these other weirdos. The problem with Pete is that I don't think he understands where all that originates from. He doesn't get that. Again, he's a 9/11 cheerleader. He thinks planes hit towers. He believes a number of different things that just are not true. He's been so insulated and had the veil pulled over his eyes regarding endless things that this is, again, why he's the constant cheerleader. So, again, I don't like that pick, but it's possible, as I kind of alluded to, if didn't outright say it in the last episode, that he very well might get a crash course in who the real enemy is. But again, you would think that he would ask himself, where did all of this woke, degenerate behavior come from? Where did it originate? Because it isn't new. It isn't unique to the United States. It's not a new behavior. This is exactly what Adolf Hitler was getting rid of during his administration. It was the problem. It was this satanic Jewish infiltration and communistic behavior among all of these individuals that, of course, made the entire country far worse and far more degenerate than it had ever been before. Certainly Germany and Europe. Same thing here. Same problem, same exact enemy. And again, whether Pete knows this or not, he's going to find out one way or another. The other interesting thing with all of these picks, too, and again, Marco Rubio as the Secretary of State, I find this one, again, to be odd. At the exact same time, we of course know full well that he's a neocon, a warmonger, and he's Israel to the bone also. But at the exact same time, Donald Trump can pull his card anytime he wants and replace him, and just like that, Marco Rubio is out of the Senate and out of public life. He's out of political life, I should say. That would be the end of him. Same thing, frankly, with all of these individuals. If all of these individuals that he's picked he doesn't like anymore, then that's it. They're done. Again, Tulsi Gabbard is Director of National Intelligence. This is an interesting move. Wouldn't have been my pick. Again, WEF connections, unless she's denounced those connections. And they have the proof that she has, in fact, denounced those connections. Unless, of course, she's a light that's going to be turned on to basically draw in the moths. That would be an interesting thing if that were the case also. So again, I know that a lot of these picks probably And again, I'm speculating here, but it's probably that a lot of these picks were used to either find particular leakers, continue to find deep state individuals who, again, are working in the interests of either themselves or, of course, the Jewish lobby and the people around them. Because, again, a lot of these individuals have direct ties to Israel in a very bad way. Some of these people are Schofield Bible-believing individuals. Take Mike Huckabee, for example. Mike Huckabee, former governor, is now the ambassador to Israel. I mean, it's a perfect job for him because he thinks they are our greatest ally. He has no idea the real history behind any of it. But again, he's another cheerleader. And it's quite possible that Huckabee's going to go over there and he's going to get the tour and he's going to get all the favoritism and he might be even more insulated over there than he would be over here. But I'm not sure, I'm not sure what's going to happen, and I'm not even going to pretend to know all the ins and outs. What I do find interesting with some of these picks, specifically two which have been made here in just recent days. First of all, Matt Gaetz being the Attorney General. I like this move. And of course, Kash Patel being the FBI Director. These two 3-letter agencies, I would love to see completely demolished. But in the process of all of that, the simple appointment that has been made with both of these individuals has caused the left to lose their minds. And again, regarding the appointment of Pete Hegseth earlier, just very quickly, the left was losing their mind for a completely different reason that those who are knowledgeable on real history and, of course, the Jewish lobby and Zionists being the problem. The left was upset with the Pete Hegseth appointment because they view him as, again, being ex-military and then just being a news correspondent or I'll meet you in the diner and we'll talk about the election on Fox News or Fox and Friends kind of person. They're basically upset that they didn't get asked to be in Biden's administration, coming straight off of a couch on a television program, again, on a news channel. That's why they're upset. And they're basically saying, well, he's not qualified, he's not qualified. We're saying he's not qualified for a completely different reason, which is actually far more educated than what the left is saying. Now, with that said, and with Pete Hegseth aside, just for a second, because I do want to play a piece of unhinged audio from him back around the October 7th of 2023 time when he was on Fox News, completely losing his mind. But I like the appointment of Matt Gaetz because the left, again, completely loses their mind and they're panicked for all of the right reasons. Matt Gaetz has these people in his crosshairs. These individuals and what they've buried and what they've done is now going to be at his fingertips. He's going to have all of this information immediately at his fingertips. And if anybody obstructs him, he fires them. Anybody gets in his way, they're out of the way instantly. This is a very good thing. He can go after an Adam Schiff, for example. He can go after numerous individuals. He can set up special committees or special investigative groups to go after politicians who we know are full-blown dirty. He can go after these people's blackmail cards and see what's on the other side of those cards. See why these people are blackmailed. He can do that too. And so can Kash Patel. Kash Patel's openly stated, again on the Sean Ryan show, that these individuals at the FBI and all of these intel agencies that exist inside of the FBI have got to go, that these people need to leave. He openly said, you want to go be cops? Go be cops. Go get a job at a local police department or go do this or go do that. He goes, but you're not going to be here. And again, people have to understand that the DOJ and the FBI have been trafficking children, drugs, weapons, who are Americans, by the way, American children and foreign children, of course, and engaging in numerous other crimes. I don't think that's going to be happening with these two individuals in those two 3-letter agencies. And again, if he can destroy the FBI from the inside and shrink the size of it, this is a good thing. There's nothing saying that the U.S. Marshal's Office can't be the office that handles most national crime. They certainly can. Again, I understand that the FBI works with foreign agencies also, but why do they have to do that? What's keeping, again, foreign agencies like Interpol, for example, from contacting the United States Marshal's Office? I don't think anything. Again, I'm not pretending to work for these agencies or have worked for these agencies. I don't know. I'm just asking questions. But again, I find a lot of this to be interesting. Again, I don't like the Kristi Noem pick either, heading up the Department of Homeland Security. I truly don't like that pick at all. I think that Tom Homan would have been a far better individual to be in that position. Again, everybody knew he wanted to be the border czar and be on the border and, of course, handle border patrol and all of the corruption that exists there. And I'm certain he'll do a fantastic job and hopefully surround himself with very good people. But again, if Kristi Noem doesn't give him all the tools that he needs or gets in his way, I have a pretty good feeling that Tom Homan is going to tell Donald Trump, which means Kristi Noem is going to be out of the way. Again, just as a quick history lesson, because I did read this on the show, back when she signed into South Dakota law HB 1076, this again has to do with South Dakota adopting the IHRA's working definition of anti-Semitism when it comes to so-called discrimination. Again, I don't like any of this, and I don't think anybody should, because these councils, these Israeli American Council, or the ICA, has no business operating inside of the United States to make laws or suggest laws or financially support individuals that support such laws or whatever it may be. We have freedom of speech in this country. We can say and do pretty much whatever we'd like, and that's the way that it's supposed to be. But again, these foreign agencies with foreign influence are not filing as foreign entities. And they should. I mean, I would think that would go without saying. But again, Governor Noem at the time bending the knee to all of this, well, it means she's no longer governor now. And again, she's not going to go back to being a governor after obtaining such a position. She's not going to go back to the House of Representatives or the Senate or anything like that. She's not going to run for president. No one's going to vote for her. She would lose in a primary. It means that after this position, she's done. And we're not going to have to hear from her ever again. Now, yeah, unfortunately, the damage has been done with these anti-Semitic bills that she has signed into law, certainly this one, with their, adopting their constant water definition of a fake word, anti-Semitism. But again, I'm not sure what's going to happen with all of these appointments. I just know that Donald Trump can pull their card in an instant. He can say that he's disappointed with this, that, or the other, and then get rid of them. But again, if Donald Trump gives these people a job to do and a directive and says, go into this department, fire these people, and then figure out who's giving you pushback, and then what we'll do is we'll pull them aside, we'll talk to them, we'll find out more information, we'll fire them, and then we'll fire everybody that they brought up, and everybody that they were talking about, and everybody that they mentioned to us. I mean, this is a draining that could take place here. So I'm trying to be optimistic regarding all of that. And again, to reference, frankly, Tom Rentz, just the other day, he was on Stu Peters' show. Tom Rentz leaned back in his chair and he goes, I don't like a lot of these appointments either. And Stu Peters can't stand them for a one-dimensional reason. And he's right. I'm not going to disagree with him on that. But again, Tom Rentz sat back and he goes, we got to judge basically everything that's happening here by the actions and what fruits are actually produced as a result of these individuals being picked into these positions. We're going to have to file the resignations. We're going to have to, sort of provide our own citizen oversight as to what's going on here, while at the exact same time knowing full well that we don't have access to the classified information. We don't know what directives they've been given directly in order to, again, carry out whatever specified job that they've been told to carry out. We're just watching this sort of as an audience and as citizens to see what's actually happening. But again, Tom Rentz is optimistic as well. And Tom Rentz openly said it too. He goes, I've told so much truth about the COVID lie. He said, I'm not expecting anybody to give me a phone call to ask me for help. He goes, I stopped getting invited to those roundtables a long time ago. Again, Tom Rentz was dropping some truth bombs to some of these congressmen and women. And of course, dropping truth bombs as he's sitting right next to Robert Malone, who has his head in the sand on a great deal of issues, and of course is not my favorite person in the world. But at the same time, Tom has a point. We kind of have to sit back and just watch this from a different angle and a different dimension. And not just hope for the best, but we should be a little bit optimistic here and fully understand that we don't quite know all the ins and outs and why these people have been chosen and what directives that maybe they've already been given. Again, I know I'm bouncing around here, but let me read this too. This was from Jonathan Greenblatt. Yes, that's right, the head of the ADL. He said this about the Matt Gaetz appointment. He said, quote, Representative Matt Gaetz has a long history of trafficking in anti-Semitism. Again, I didn't know you could traffic made-up words. Anyway, he went on and says, from explaining his vote against the bipartisan Anti-Semitism Awareness Act by invoking the centuries-old trope that Jews killed Jesus to defending the Great Replacement theory, and inviting a Holocaust denier as his 2018 State of the Union guest. He should not be appointed to any high office, much less one overseeing the impartial execution of our nation's laws, unquote. Well, first of all, Jonathan Greenblatt is a traitor to America, and number two, he has dual citizenship, which means he's not for America. Again, head of the ADL, that should go without saying. In fact, just as a little side note, just to again continue to prove that X is not a free speech platform, there's a comedian on there who I follow by the name of Leandra Johnny. Very funny, very talented gal. And she put out a particular post, and she's wide awake, by the way, certainly when it comes to Jewish supremacy and the Jewish lobby and all of that. Cracks jokes about it, too, in her stand-up routines. Again, she's highly talented, very knowledgeable. Anyway, she put out a post the other day, and she was seriously asking the question. She said, I'm looking for documentaries having to do with the Holocaust. Does anybody have any that they recommend? I got in the reply section, said, yeah, sure. Europa the Last Battle, Part 8. I said, this is your one-stop shop for all things holohoax. That particular post was flagged by X and then limited in its visibility because of, quote-unquote, violence and harassment. So I was being violent and harassing whom exactly? By using the word holohoax? I mean, give me a break. And it's, again, she was asking a legit question. She's completely wide awake, was asking a serious question, no problem. But again, this right here should prove to people that that's the enemy. They're the free speech enemy. They are the enemy that is trying to keep people from criticizing them, which should tell people something about them. Again, why is the ADL all cracked up about Matt Gaetz? What do you have to hide? What are you so worried about? You think he's going to find something over there at the old DOJ that has something to do with all of you that you're not going to like him finding? It's possible. And as you would expect, you also have AIPAC coming out there on X, basically supporting every single person that they have their claws in. AIPAC said this about John Thune. Congratulations to incoming Senate Majority Leader at John Thune. Senator Thune has been a pro-Israel champion throughout his time in Congress, and we were proud to endorse him in 2022. We look forward to working with him to further strengthen the U.S.-Israel alliance, unquote. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. This should prove to people again that AIPAC is the problem. I don't think it can possibly get any more clear. Now, again, with that said, when it comes to these particular senatorial and congressional positions that have become vacant now because Donald Trump has selected these individuals and these individuals accepted, essentially, like I said earlier, they aren't going to go back to any other previous position because that would be a public demotion. And they're not going to go any higher than this. They might try. They might run for president in the future. They'll fail. I certainly think that they would anyway. But either way, they'll potentially try. But what ends up happening regarding their congressional and senatorial seat is the state governor of the state where they come from gets to fill the seat. So Marco Rubio's seat gets to be filled by Governor DeSantis. Elise Stefanik's seat gets to be filled by Governor Kathy Hochul, if I'm not mistaken. I think it works the same for both Senate and House positions. I could be wrong, but I do know it works that way for Senate. So let me mention this. Again, this was Sean Davis over on X, and here's what he said. He said, quote, "Every swamp rat crying about Gates didn't lift a finger while DOJ was running illegal coup after illegal coup against our elected government from 2016 through 2020. They didn't say a word when DOJ illegally seized the phones of Representative Scott Perry or Representative Andy Ogles. He said they were as quiet as a church mouse when DOJ illegally spied on Trump. They were nowhere to be found when DOJ hatched and ran the entire fake kidnapping plot against Gretchen Whitmer. They did nothing when DOJ allowed violent threats against Supreme Court justices to continue. And don't even get me started on their paralysis regarding the insane DOJ J6 op. So to everyone in Washington crying out about Gates, Matt Gates, you're the reason he is necessary. Understand that it is happening because of your own fecklessness or complicity. You did nothing while the infection festered and the cancer spread at DOJ. You look the other way as it nearly destroyed the country. And now you wonder why emergency medicine is necessary. So as you cry at Capitol Grill over your expensive wine bought for you by your corrupt K Street donors, just know that all of this is your fault. And that it's not going to stop until the problems you deliberately ignored are finally solved." Unquote. True, it's an excellent point. There's a lot of dirt on these people, and what they've of course done over the last 8 years, let alone the first 4, when Trump was formally in office. Sean Davis on X also said this very quickly. He said, with Gates having resigned his seat in the House, if the Senate tries to reject his AG confirmation, DeSantis can always appoint Gates to fill Marco Rubio's seat. Would be interesting to see senators have to choose between Gates as AG or as their colleague for years to come, unquote. Yeah. Again, this part of it I enjoy. I enjoy the headaches that it creates these, in the minds of these establishment losers. All these people hate having the boat rocked. They can't stand it. And anytime any politician comes out publicly and says, well, this isn't typically how it works, and this typically isn't how it works, all of those people are dirty. That's the giant, bright light and glaring, just huge red flag that should be on every single one of those people. If anybody again comes out and says, well, this isn't normally how we do this, and this seems completely unexpected, and blah, 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 then those people are dirty. It's like every state governor right now who's coming out and saying publicly, along with state AGs and a number of other lawyers, they're all coming out publicly and they're saying, we're going to stop Donald Trump from rounding up illegals in our state, that just doesn't go here. I want them to keep saying that. All they're doing is shining a light on the fact that they are going to obstruct something that is completely lawful. And what happens when you do that? That's called obstruction of justice. That's a crime. So arrest them. You put cuffs on them, you throw their stupid asses in the back of a paddy wagon, and you take them downtown. Or you take them to Gitmo, or you take them wherever you want to take them. That's where these people have to go. I mean, honest to God, ladies and gentlemen, if you said on social media or publicly or anywhere with a camera in your face that made its way out there for anybody to see that you wanted to hurt a politician, you'd get a knock on your door. But these individuals get to openly say that they are willfully going to engage in obstruction of justice. And then they hide behind their lawyers and say, well, we're going to get lawyers involved and we're going to get lawyers involved and there's going to be some lawfare here and we have to look into the law and blah, blah, blah. But they always say, we're not going to allow that to take place in our state. All they're doing is telling you they want to break the law. That's it. It would, again, be like you consistently saying that you wanted to murder somebody or you were going to rob a store or you were going to hurt a child or whatever it is. You would get a knock on your door. Not those people, though. But those people are going to get a knock on their door because they have to. They've come out on the record publicly and stated exactly how they feel about illegals being rounded up in their state, which is exactly what has to happen. We're not going to allow the National Guard to do their job in our state. That's obstruction of justice. We're not going to allow National Guards from other states to come into our state and round up illegals. That's obstruction of justice. The National Guard has been federalized. The federal government runs the National Guard, not the states. They apparently missed that entire executive order from Donald Trump back in whenever that was, his first formal term from 2016, 2017 onward. There's also this too, because there's been a lot of discussion regarding whether or not these individuals are going to be approved by the Senate. Now, the first move, of course, is Donald Trump can take every single one of these positions that has to be approved by the Senate, and he can make these people the acting directors of these departments. Now, it can be, again, a limited position, but he can consistently sign them off to be acting, which, if memory serves, back again in 2017 and the years after, it's basically a 3-month position, if I'm not mistaken, if not longer than that. Maybe even 6 months. I forget the exact timetable, but these individuals would be employed for X amount of time, and then they can nominate somebody, and then Donald Trump can hire them again to be an acting director of these agencies. They don't have to be confirmed by the Senate. That's number one. Number two, there's discussion here right now online anyway, and it said this particular post, again from the general on Telegram, says Trump team is reportedly discussing plan to adjourn both houses of Congress under Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution and then recess appoint his entire cabinet. That would be interesting. There's also this, ironically enough, it's not coming from Glenn Beck, it's coming from one of his guests, but one of his guests on his show at Dissident Clint on X. It says this, Senate insider at Dissident Clint on X explains how J.D. Vance could still effectively serve as Senate Majority Leader if John Thune obstructs the MAGA mandate. He said, quote, there's a little known procedure in the Senate that gives the Majority Leader the right to be recognized on the floor first. Who decides to recognize them? The person sitting in the chair at the front of the room. That chair belongs to J.D. Vance. Anybody else sitting in that chair is borrowing his seat. He can walk in the room, kick them out, take the seat, and recognize whoever he wants, who is going to move President Trump's nominees. He can actually decide who is running the show, unquote. That's a nice move also. Again, you don't want... I got to laugh about this because this is kind of funny. I mean, this is... I like this. This really is chess playing. It's not checkers. This really is chess. And again, as I've said before a million times regarding numerous situations, you're putting these people in a position where they cannot accurately make any kind of a winning move. And thank God for the Constitution and the ability to do all of this. But again, these people are in Zootsfang. They do not want to be in a position where they are forced to make a move that they don't want to make, knowing that they've already lost. John Thune, who, by the way, I got in his X account and I basically just replied to his post, thanking everybody for becoming the Senate Majority Leader, and I simply asked, I said, at John Thune, or at Senator John Thune, who are your blackmailers asking for a friend? Again, I'm not expecting a reply on any of that, but that's my real question. Anyway, these individuals don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to publicly be embarrassed. And they don't want to be yanked around by the back of the neck by the Constitution because these people spit on the Constitution. Again, much like school boards, for example, not wanting parents to understand and citizens to understand that anybody can file complaints against educators at the state level against their licenses, for example. Much like that, senators and congressmen and women who are beyond corrupt in Washington, D.C., don't want you to learn about the Constitution. They don't want you to learn about the rules and regulations and old acts that have been signed into law a long time ago where it gives individuals the ability to do a number of different things procedurally that they would, again, assume that the general public knows nothing about. That's why they don't educate the public about these kinds of things as they actually do them. They just fall back on that saying of, well, this isn't normally how we do things. This is very unorthodox, and it's not how we do things around here because we have a way we do things around here. Well, again, if everybody knows that's the good old boy system. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. You give me a little bit of money, I'll do something for you, and then I'll come back at you later, and I'll pay you a little bit of money, and you'll do something for me, and blah, blah, blah. But all of that stuff, again, if all of this is just a little firecracker in a toilet that gets everybody panicked and gets everybody running in different directions and then trying to rationalize their stances on particular things, I like it. I like that kind of stuff, and I'm always going to like that kind of stuff. Now, again, to sort of come full circle here on this particular subject before I move on to education stuff, I don't like the Zionists that are being selected for these positions. I just don't. There are a lot of people who don't. It looks highly suspicious. But at the exact same time, if we're saving Israel for last regarding all of this, then these individuals have to find out exactly what these people are doing and why they're doing it. And these people in these positions are going to be exposed to classified information that's going to show them who's doing what and why they're doing it. The Jewish lobby has to be done away with in this country. That's America first. There's no other way around it. I've been going after Pete Hegseth constantly on X. I think I hit him up at least, I want to say 5 times in the last, 24 hours, where I'm dropping videos on him, where again, it shows very graphic, horrific things that Jews are doing to Palestinians and other people over there. I don't think Pete again knows, as I said in the last episode, that IDF soldiers were shooting at and killing American soldiers in the Middle East back after 9/11. Again, back when Pete was involved in Operation Iraqi Freedom in Afghanistan and all of that stuff. He doesn't understand this. He doesn't know this. So just very quickly, here's a quick piece of audio from Fox News, and I believe this is, again, from Fox and Friends, of Pete Hegseth again talking about Israel after the so-called October 7th attacks a year ago. Again, he sounds unhinged and remarkably uneducated, but give him a listen in 3, 2, 1.
Ainsley, if you open up your Bible, God granted Abraham this land. The 12 tribes of Israel established the constitutional monarchy 1000 BC. King David was their second king and established Jerusalem as the capital. Jews were fighting foreign occupiers for centuries, ultimately maintaining a presence there. But the key aspect, and right now, Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims are trying to erase the Jewish ties to Jerusalem as we speak. I've been there multiple times. They're trying to make it look like Jews were never there. The most important aspect of this is the international community granted sovereignty to the Jews, to the Jewish state after World War II. And Israel has had to fight defensive war after defensive war with every country coming to crush it ever since then just to exist.
Again, there's a lot wrong there. I mean, all of it's wrong. All of it's inaccurate. The Bible very specifically in numerous verses, certainly if I'm not mistaken in the book of Matthew, consistently talks about God telling the Jews to come to God. Again, just a few lines here. John 8, 21 through 24, specifically where Jesus Christ said, "Where I go, you cannot come." There is that, speaking specifically of them. There's Matthew 23, 33. "Ye serpents, ye generation, race of vipers, how can ye escape the damnation of hell?" Matthew 23, 13. "But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against me. For ye neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in." Another one, Matthew 23, 15. "Ye make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves." And it goes on and on and on. Numerous articles written about this too. Exactly what Jesus Christ said about the Jews and a number of other things. But Jesus Christ was a Jew, Sean? I don't think so. he's God. And I thought God was non-denominational, and I thought that God was not any specified race. I thought that was the point. But see, this is Schofield Bible stuff that they lead people to believe in. The chosen people, that we have to defend the land no matter what, and all this other stuff. Again, this is much like any other line of work when it comes to Pete Hegseth, is that when you are surrounded by a machine, and you work for a machine that is operating in a singular direction and you don't know who's pulling the strings and what their motives are, it's usually not until you leave those particular avenues that you actually start to learn for the first time in your life. Again, I knew the education business was corrupt, which is why I got into it in the first place. But once I was in it, that's when I actually, ironically enough, started to see how actually bad it really was and how it hadn't changed since I was a child. And I was overwhelmed by that. And I thought, wow, this is awful. Of course, when you're in it as an adult, you're looking at it with completely different eyes and a far more mature brain, clearly, than you are as a child. Although your intuition is generally the same throughout. You know, it doesn't smell good, and you know that it doesn't smell good, doesn't look good, and you know this. But you're looking at it with a far more mature mind and more mature eyes. It's no different than when I left the business. Same exact thing happened. It was like graduating to a third or fourth or fifth dimension. Same thing. Then you started to see exactly how dirty it is from the outside in. And then once you do an actual history dive on the origins of education and how, again, our government uses it as a brainwashing apparatus, frankly, it's no different than most lines of work. Certainly not in the news business, of which Pete Hegseth has been a part of for a very long time. And again, if Pete Hegseth is told, hey, look, you're the defense secretary, it's time for you to appoint someone to take care of veterans and get veterans off of the streets and do the right thing by veterans in this country, not in Israel, but in this country. That would be something that Pete would be good at. See, I would have put Pete in that position. That would have been the thing to do. And you talk about a humbling experience and something that would probably break Pete to a great extent. Again, Pete's a cheerleader. That's fine. He's the guy who does charitable events and runs around with his shirt off and waves a flag and shows his tattoos and the whole thing. Fine. You want to do that? No problem. Put Pete in street clothes and have him walk down the streets of Philadelphia. And again, find not only veterans, but find all of the problems that do exist in our own country. This is a defense problem for us too. It's an administrative problem also. It's a homeland security problem also. But again, defense secretary and going overseas and talking with God knows who about God knows what, it's going to be interesting if he can actually do it. He might be over his skis on the job, but it'll be interesting to watch. I just want him to stop talking about Israel. I mean, give it up, man. Give it up. This is a guy, again, who was in the military. You would think that he would want to know the truth historically about the very event that took place on our soil and who was behind it. Unless, of course, he doesn't want to know. And if that's who he is and he's a person who doesn't want to know, that's a problem. Again, if he puts his head in the sand, covers his eyes, covers his ears, and goes, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. That's a serious problem. But what he also doesn't know, which is very similar, I should say, and it's a very strategic move, but it's a repetitive move that you would think more people would know, is that when you don't want someone to know about what really goes on in a particular line of work, you bring them closer to that line of work. You bring them closer to the people who really knew what went on, including the people who have engaged in illegality. It's sort of a keep your friends close, enemies closer kind of approach. Again, Pete Hegseth went from being in the military to talking with veterans to finding his way at Fox News. So Fox News brought him in. Why? That would be an interesting question. Is it because he was a veteran, or is it because maybe they found out that he was starting to learn a little too much and they wanted to bring him in and show him the cheerleading side of everything that takes place? I'm not sure. But the cheerleading thing has got to go away now. Because if Pete ever finds out that there were no planes on 9/11, that Jews were behind the entire thing along with our government, that this is a spiritual war, and that IDF soldiers were killing his fellow men and women on the sandbox that is the Middle East during Operation Iraqi Freedom, so to speak, and all of those other wars that took place over there, I think Pete would lose his mind. He'd blow his top. But this is a fact, and this is something that's happened, so we're going to see. I don't think he's awake by any stretch, but I think he and lots of other people have an opportunity to wake up here. We'll see if they do or they don't. Okay, with that aside, let me move on to this here. Just a couple more geopolitical events here. This comes out of Australia. And as you may be aware, they've gone off the deep end, certainly when it comes to freedom of expression, which clearly they don't have over there. But their parliament is cracking down on social media and any basically semblance of what might be perceived to be freedom of speech. So it's becoming far more tyrannical than what any of them can possibly imagine. This is titled the Communications Legislation Amendment Combating Misinformation and Disinformation, Bill 2024. Here's the summary of this. It sounds horrific. It amends the Broadcasting Services Act 1992, again in Australia, to impose obligations on digital communications platform providers in relation to the dissemination of content on a digital communications platform that contains information that is reasonably verifiable as false, misleading, or deceptive, and is reasonably likely to cause or contribute to serious harm of a specified type, misinformation and disinformation. Again, communism, Bolshevism. You talk about a Masonic Jewish state, or certainly country, it's Australia. And it goes on here, it also says, expand the Australian Communications and Media Authority's compliance and enforcement powers in relation to misinformation and disinformation, and make consequential amendments. Also makes consequential amendments to 3 other acts, and amends the Broadcasting Services Act of 1992 to make an amendment contingent on the commencement of the Administrative Review Tribunal Act of 2024, unquote. All of it sounds totalitarian. No doubt about it. Now, going to the other side of the pond, endless dollars, certainly $500 million to billions of dollars, are still being sent to Ukraine. That's not stopping. They've openly stated this. The so-called Biden administration and, of course, the House and the Senate have openly said that they're still throwing money that way. That needs to stop immediately. Certainly when Donald Trump retakes formal office, if money has really been going over there in the first place, but who's to say? And then there's this. This was from Town Hall, and it was titled, "We're Heading for a Recount in Pennsylvania, and the Dems Want Illegal Ballots Counted." It says Senator Bob Casey, Democrat from Pennsylvania, has no path to victory. He's going to lose to Republican Dave McCormick. Everyone, including Democrats, knows Casey lost. Yet Casey refuses to concede because attorney Mark Elias is trying to steal the election. Those aren't my words. The Wall Street Journal editorial board said as much about this fiasco occurring in the Keystone State. Quote, "The Associated Press and most other media have called the Senate race in Pennsylvania for Republican Dave McCormick. But never fear, Democrats' lawyer Mark Elias is on the case trying to steal the seat for incumbent Democrat Bob Casey," they wrote. Quote, "Did someone say election denial, quote unquote? Regardless, it says, this contest is going to be an unnecessary recount," via CBS News. A bunch of Twitter posts or X posts. It says Senator Bob Casey's not giving up on retaining his U.S. Senate seat. The 3-term Democrat is currently locked in a tight race with Dave McCormick, trailing the Republican by just over 29,000 votes as of 4 p.m. Wednesday. Blah, 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 blah. How embarrassing. Speaking of embarrassing too, and again, there has to be something else happening here. Kari Lake has spoken out for the first time regarding the stolen election and what's gone on there. She conceded, essentially. Without conceding, without saying that she's conceding her senatorial seat, but she's openly stated again that she thanks everybody for supporting her over the years and that she's going to continue to fight for Arizona and continue to stand up for Arizona's rights and so on and so forth. Again, I really don't take this at face value. I don't think this is the end of her time there. We know that she should be the lawful governor of that state. We also know that she ran twice in 2 elections, most recently the 2024, of course, senatorial position, and she probably won that also. Arizona is a massive cartel state. They're a massive illegal alien, illegal border influx state. There's a reason that they were specifically going after her and letting other Republicans win particular races. They didn't want her around. But she's also been very quiet. Again, even in her statement, she did not concede the senatorial position. And she never conceded the gubernatorial position either. She never did. She never said, Katie Hobbs is the lawful governor and I lost and congratulations. She's never said that. Which tells me that there's something else going on here. There's no way that they're going to let Arizona get away with this and the people running these illegal elections in Arizona get away with it. No chance. It's too obvious that something else is going on here. Her silence has been interesting. Her public statement most recently on YouTube was interesting. Again, she didn't say it. There was no concession. I find it interesting. In fact, I'll play her little 2-minute message here right now. This is on her YouTube channel. Give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, Arizona. Carrie Lake here. For 30 years, you trusted me to bring the news into your homes, to tell you the truth. About 3 years ago, I walked away from a 7-figure contract in the fake news because I couldn't lie to you. What good is money if it comes at the cost of your soul? I was sickened spreading the government's COVID narrative. And I was at my desk one day and opened the Bible, and an old Bible verse gave me the courage I needed, the courage to walk away. I thought that would end my time in the public eye. But to my surprise and my eternal gratitude, the people of Arizona rose up and requested that I run for political office. This journey that we've taken together over the past few years has been once in a lifetime. It hasn't been easy, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. They threw everything at us, fake news, hundreds of millions of dollars, and the most vile attacks. And through it all, you never wavered. And I can't thank you enough for that. It was a movement of love for family, for Arizona, and for America. And I am grateful to all of you who shared it with me. Arizona is a special place, and I'm thankful that President Trump and a Republican majority in both chambers of Congress will be in office to help protect us. As I watch his cabinet forming, I take great comfort in knowing that America will be made great again. And that's good, because that's what the American people deserve. You deserve a secure border, a prosperous economy, safe streets, and free and fair elections. And I know more than anything that this administration will fight to deliver that for you. As for me, well, I can say for certain that truth will never stop mattering to me. You will never stop mattering to me. These memories that we've made together will never go away. They will grow sweeter over time, and I will never stop fighting for the state I love. I entered this fight with the Bible verse, and I will leave it with you as well. It's 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 7. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is for certain we can carry nothing out. It's an amazing Bible verse. It really inspired me, and I hope it inspires you. Thank you for everything. I love all of you. God bless America, and God bless State 48.
Again, she didn't concede. She hasn't conceded either one because she didn't lose either one. If the Brunson case gets implemented here at the Supreme Court, and it is found that voter fraud did in fact take place, which we know it did, during 2020, the floodgates are going to be wide open. Endless voter fraud cases are going to be brought now, certainly most recently in Arizona. I mean, again, nothing would bring I don't think the citizens of Arizona more joy than to watch Katie Hobbs get arrested for participating in her own illegal election. And, of course, watch her be taken out in handcuffs from her gubernatorial mansion there in Arizona. People would love to see that. The Arizona people would love to see it. We would love to see it. It would be a fantastic thing. But again, this kind of accountability is exactly what we want to see. This is what has got to happen. And if that means we have to go back in time to right the wrongs of the past in order to again bring us into a new future, then that's exactly what has to go on. We can't sweep this under the rug. Again, Kari Lake hasn't conceded either race that she was running. I find that interesting. So we'll see what happens going forward here, but something has to break regarding Arizona because they're arguably one of the dirtiest states when it comes to elections. And all of the individuals participating in those elections has to be rounded up. We want to see that. They want to see that. Again, the citizens of Arizona clearly want to see that. And that's what needs to happen, in my humble opinion. So yeah, let's pray that that actually takes place. Okay, education stuff. I have 3 stories here. Here's the first one. Some good news in this regard, although this should tell you how dirty the business is yet again. This comes from Natural News. Florida removed over 4,500 adult and LGBTQ books from schools last year, says report. It says Florida has emerged as the top state in America so far called book banning, according to a recent report. More than 4,500 total books and 4,231 individual titles were pulled from Florida public schools in the 23-24 school year based on a report by PEN America, a free speech nonprofit. This is a massive increase from the 1,406 books banned the previous school year and accounts for, it says, nearly half of the more than 10,000 books removed from schools nationwide. Excellent. It says, as stated in the report, 39% of the books banned had LGBTQ themes and characters, and 57%, had, quote, sex or sex-related content. Another 44% were about characters of color, quote unquote, but PEN America did not explicitly state that race was a motivating factor for removal, merely suggesting a correlation. It says Florida's 2023 law, House Bill 1069, made a legal process for pulling out books, in addition to a requirement that they be removed while schools reply to challenges filed by parents or citizens. The list gathered by PEN America involves books permanently removed from schools, removed pending investigation, and restricted based on grade level or parental permission requirement. And here's this number 33, rather suspicious. It says 33 school districts in Florida have removed the books. As stated by PEN America's report, 33 of Florida's 73 public school districts removed books from their schools' shelves. The highest removal numbers in the state came from Escambia, Clay, Collier, and Orange counties. Escambia comprised of 1,582 of Florida's removals, many of which were banned pending investigation in August of 23, immediately after the book removal law came into effect. Again, the simple fact that this has to become a law to get rid of perverse books in schools should tell you all you need to know. Now, speaking of perverse books, how about everybody can share the same bathroom at the same time, no matter what gender or sex they're pretending to be. Now, fortunately, in the state of Ohio, this is becoming illegal also. Because let's face it, in the state of Ohio, Governor Mike DeWine doesn't run a thing. The Senate is majority conservative, the House is majority conservative, and if they give him a bill that he needs to sign and he decides to veto it in some way, his veto will always be overridden. Certainly when it comes to these perverse moves that he's tried to make in the past by vetoing in the first place. Let's see if he vetoes this one. Give this audio a listen from a local news outlet in 3, 2, 1.
The Ohio Senate passed legislation known as the bathroom bill.
NBC4 State House reporter Natalie Fahmy has been tracking the bill since the start. She joins us live to tell us what today's vote means. Natalie?
Yeah, the Senate passed the bill just about 1 hour ago after some emotional debate on the Senate floor. It now heads to Governor Mike DeWine's desk for consideration. Now, this has been a contentious bill here at the State House for the last year and a half. Supporters of the legislation say it's about creating a safer environment for students, but its critics say this is just the latest in a series of bills here at the Ohio State House that target the LGBTQ plus community. If this bill is signed by Governor Mike DeWine, Senate Bill 104 will require both public and private grade schools and all Ohio universities to prohibit non-gendered bathrooms and will ban transgender students from using bathrooms that align with their gender identity. The bill has 4 exceptions in it for students under 10 being assisted by someone, assisting a person with a disability, in the case of emergencies, or an employee whose duties require it. The CDC estimates that just over 3% of high school students identify as transgender. Opponents of the bill say it targets and harasses gender diverse students, parents, and staff, and will result in more bullying. Backers of the legislation call it common sense.
Ohioans and Americans, quite frankly, across this country, don't want boys and girls sports. They don't want boys and girls locker rooms. They don't want boys and girls bathrooms. It's for the safety of the kids. And this message was sent loud and clear last week during the national election.
What if I was forced to use the bathroom of my assigned sex at birth, a women's restroom? As a 21-year-old trans man, I can't believe adult students would be subjected to restroom policies decided by politicians.
If the bill is signed into law, Ohio will be joining 11 other states with some sort of bathroom ban that has been enacted in their states. Governor Mike DeWine has indicated that he is interested in signing this legislation, but says he needs to review the specific language in this bill once it arrives to his desk. Local for you at the State House, I'm Natalie Fahmy, NBC4.
Again, not to get back to Pete Hegseth again, but this is the thing he needs to ask himself. Where does all of this perversion come from? Where does it come from? Who started all of this? Look into the history, Pete. You'll find out the answer to that question. And to that transgendered individual who's completely confused, you're really a girl. Stop pretending to be a boy. Grow up or institutionalize yourself because you're a nutbag. This is, again, this is the problem. Normalizing these perversions and these actions to where government, if they're not being paid off to vote in favor of them, of course, are being put in a position clearly in order to vote against them and create actual legislation that keeps this from happening. Again, like moths to the flame, look at all of the people that fell for this over the last 4+ years. All of the people. And this started again around the Donald Trump administration. Local governments saw Donald Trump come in and they all panicked and they said, well, we need to get gayer than we already are. And then before you knew it, the whole bathroom thing started to show up. That was all the way back then. I mean, that was 8 years ago, if not even before that, during Obama. In fact, it was during Obama. It was even before Donald Trump. But the number of people that have fallen for this is astounding. What is it? I saw this just the other day. 14,000 children within the last 4 years have lopped off their genitals and cut their breasts off. 14,000 in the United States alone. Hey, Pete Hegseth, again, your greatest ally, God's chosen people. They're the ones that created this. It's in their books. It's in their religious text. All these perversions exist in all of their texts. I've referenced Marmari Emanuel before. He's one of my favorites. And there's a particular YouTube channel I enjoy watching. It's of some of his sermons along with historic context and some of the advice that he gives. But this is a 2-minute clip recently on the YouTube channel Followers of Christ. I recommend you give that channel a look. I thoroughly enjoy it. I've thrown some of the videos, short videos rather, from that channel into the war videos as well. But give this a listen again. This is specifically an individual running through passages of the Talmud, which of course I've done on this show also before. And then you hear Marmari toward the end. So give this a listen very quickly in 3, 2, 1.
The Book of Talmud is, after the Hebrew Bible, the central text of Rabbinic Judaism and the primary source of Jewish religious law and Jewish theology. We have gathered a few rules from the book that Jews are taught to follow. Keep in mind, the word goyim in Hebrew means a non-Jew in English. Sophorim 15. Even the best of goyim should all be killed. Yebamoth 98a. All children of goyim are animals. Baba Mezia 114b. Gentiles goys are not humans. They are beasts. Gatshas 2. A Jew may violate but not marry a non-Jew girl. Sander in 54b. A Jew may have sex with a child as long as the child is less than 9 years old. Tospot Jebamoth 84b. If you eat with a goy is the same as eating with a dog. Baba Mezia 24a. If a Jew finds an object lost by a goy, it does not have to be returned.
And a piece of advice to Israel. People of Israel, you will never find peace. You will never accomplish peace. You will never live peace ever until you acknowledge that the Son that was crucified on that hilltop called Calvary was Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Because the one who gives peace is Jesus of Nazareth. No one else. No one else. No one else.
Pete's going to have his work cut out for him here. He's getting attacked pretty good on X, and if he doesn't have any explanations, well, he's going to have to own up to something. Not knowing the whole picture, not understanding all the different angles. Again, if he was selected to go to war, this is not the guy, and we don't need war here. Again, I heard him on the Sean Ryan show a while back, a few days back, again talking about a number of different things. Got to get rid of the woke generals, as I said earlier. What else did he say? Got to get rid of the woke generals, got to get rid of all this ideology. Recruitment is too low. We got to change the recruitment method. The fact is this, is that people aren't buying these Jew wars anymore. They just aren't buying them. Too many people are awake. Too many people know exactly what goes on, and they don't want to be pawns in the military-industrial complex games anymore, where they get slaughtered, families get ruined for absolutely nothing, for land grabs overseas. If that means that they try to manufacture some crisis here on our land in order to again stoke the flames of war overseas or blame Iran, Iran's the enemy, and all this other stuff, stop it. Most people just want to be left alone. Let bygones be bygones and be left alone. But right now there's one entity that is consistently interested in taking land from innocent people. We know who that is. So, yeah. I'm going to pray that he receives a little bit of clarity here and stops covering himself with tattoos about this, that, or the other. Okay. How about more teacher meltdowns? I've got one. This is an interesting one. Right down the road, actually, from Westerville, Ohio, Olentangy Orange High School. Not in the same district, but Olentangy is its own separate district. This comes from the Olentangy Orange High School principal, female, I know, shocking. Let's see, her name, Monica Asher. And here's what she said in a memo. She actually typed all of this out and decided to send it to everybody. You can't make this up. Quote, words from Monica Asher. I have struggled this week to find the right words for the SOP, the State of the Pioneer, apparently, is what it's called. Anyway, she went on, she said, I can't write a message that pretends like the election didn't happen, especially when so many of you are struggling with how to move forward. I know you are struggling with how much to move forward with your students who are afraid, but also how to move forward with colleagues that don't share your views. This week, I saw pain, uncertainty, and division. I have to be honest, I am not entirely sure how to tell you how to move forward. What I can tell you is that I am here with you and my values have not changed. Well, they should, because your values, so to speak, are what got you in this problem in the first place and got you in this frame of mind in the first place. She went on, as you would expect, and says, I recognize that leadership is tested during tough times. Anyone can lead when it's easy, and I grew up not wanting to be just anyone. Oh, you're not just anyone. You're a special kind of retarded. She goes on, she says, I grew up wanting to be someone who made a difference. Oh, you're making a difference, all right, just not in the way you think. There's 3 more paragraphs of this nonsense. Again, sidebar, ladies and gentlemen, this is not the job of a building administrator. In American public schools, private or charter, this is not their job. Their job is not to make political statements. Their job is not to believe lies and then come out with a memo like this and publicize it to everybody, assuming that everybody is on her brainwashed wavelength of thought. She's actually showing she's not a leader. If she were one, she wouldn't make anything political. She would just let students learn factual information, hopefully have teachers teach factual information, and fire and hire people. But you can see that the job has become so much more that has nothing to do with what the job is really about. She went on here and she said, quote, know that Orange will continue to be a place where students, all students, italicized, find safety. No, it's not supposed to be a place where they find safety. They're supposed to find the truth in content and be taught appropriately. It will continue to be a place that not only values diversity but celebrates it. Orange will continue to be a place where showing compassion and respect to those around us is a priority, where we recognize the humanity, dignity, and worth in every person we meet. It will continue to be a place where we support and uplift others. There is a lot that I don't know. You got that right. But here is what I do know. Uh-oh. She said, I know we have a building full of people who love kids and who want to make a difference. That said, I ask you to join me and move like buffalo through a storm. Rather than running away from the storm, buffalo typically face it head on. They take stock in the direction the storm is moving, gather together in the herd, and move directly into it. They stick together for protection, with the stronger individuals leading and guiding the group, ensuring that the younger and weaker members are kept safe. Moving towards the storm seems a little strange, but they do this because they know that the first place where there will be light is directly on the other side of the storm clouds. She's lost her mind. She's lost her mind. She's quite literally calling you all buffalo now. I mean, it's a sheep reference. They stick together, they move at the same pace, they go in the same direction when told to, and they stay away from predators and whatever else. She's making farm animal comparisons. Does anybody else see this? Is anybody else awake to any of this? She finished, she said, the buffalo's resilience, unity, and strength is drawn from working as a collective. By working together, we can also face any challenge. We can support one another and create an environment where both we and our students thrive. We can move towards the light, and we can create the light. We don't need to wait for it to come to us. I continue to be proud to be your principal and proud to be a part of your herd. Unquote. Your herd. Again, more farm animal references. This is lost on her. We call you sheep because that's what you are. Sheep to the slaughter. You follow each other in mindset. You follow each other physically in body. You do everything the person in front of you does. And when you smell the blood of the sheep in front of you, it's too late. It's too late at that point. You're already too far gone. She sounds jabbed. This is completely lost on this woman. She thought this was a good idea. She needs to be reprimanded. She's unhinged. She needs to be removed. Again, this is so great. This is so great. This couldn't have proved on a more biblical scale, as I said in previous episodes, why people need to leave this business. Pull your children out. Bankrupt them. Use this as an example. Principal Asher, I saw your memo and it's official. You're certifiable. I'm pulling my children out, effective immediately, and we're homeschooling. They're old enough to read and write, which means they're old enough to teach themselves. We're going to be using a Christian homeschooling program, called Abeka.com. My children will be wiser as a result of being away from you and this school district. Sincerely yours, this parent, that parent, and every other parent. That's what should happen. That's what needs to happen. These people need to wake up. Parents need to wake up. Stop expecting these places to change. These administrators are being protected. They're being protected. These school teachers who have lost their minds, not all of them have been fired. Some of them are actively being protected. Again, as God is my witness, this is God's way of trying to tell people that you need to get as far away from these environments as possible. These people are showing you their true colors. They're showing you how little they know. They're showing you exactly, again, how mentally disturbed they are. And these beliefs that they have, not knowing facts, and that facts aren't beliefs and beliefs aren't facts. She's openly calling, I might add, for division also. We need to group together. We need to head toward the so-called problem head on together and together. She, again, in one memo that went out to everybody, she just created a more divisive environment than what they probably already had. All she had to do was keep her stupid mouth shut, but she couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. Just another moth to the flame. That's all. And now everybody's seen her. She's all over libs of TikTok, thousands of comments, thousands and thousands of reads. People all across the nation know who this woman is, and it's not for anything good. It's all bad. I love it. I love it. Keep it up. Keep it up, dummies. You're ruining your careers. And she's in Ohio. Hell, I could file a formal complaint against her license right now. I might do it. Use this as evidence. She's created a divisive environment. I'm an Ohio citizen. This is a woman who needs to be reprimanded, and she has no business being an administrator or around children. If an election causes her to lose her mind because she believes things that are not real, imagine what would happen if something else were to happen that would be real, that would cause her to lose her mind. And then all of that, of course, impact the school environment. You know she believes all the fake school shootings are real. You know she implements all of the policies that the district and the state cause her to implement without even thought. Because again, to be in these positions, you have to be a do-gooder. You have to be somebody who just follows orders. These people are not well. They truly aren't. Last story here, and speaking of not well, although this is a good move, but again, you would think that the jabbed, perhaps like her, and you know she has to be jabbed, you can see it in her eyes. There's a picture of her here anyway. But again, you would think that they would know that this is an actual story and that this is actually a good thing for the unjabbed, but not so good for the jabbed. Naturalnews.com, this is from a few days ago, Judge rules AstraZeneca, other COVID jab makers not immune from injury claims for breach of contract. Not immune. Well, kind of a big deal. Do these people know that these jab groups are being sued? Are they aware of this? Probably not. Again, just like I said in the last episode with the Michigan gal who walked away with approximately $12 million for refusing to take the shots and lost her job in the process, even when she was working from home. These people don't know that this is going on. The article says the following, quote, "The Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act, PrEP Act, which Congress passed just before President Trump declared a public health emergency for the Wuhan coronavirus, no such thing, in early 2020 is not enough to shield the pharmaceutical industry from liability for breach of contract," a U.S. judge ruled this past week. In a feverish attempt to create the perfect con for Big Pharma to rake in the dough during the pandemic, quote unquote, both sides of the American political aisle rushed through the PrEP Act, believing it would be the perfect liability shield for COVID jab makers like AstraZeneca, which is on the hook for injuries. A woman named Brianne Drezen, if I'm saying that right, sued AstraZeneca, which produced a viral vector version of the COVID-19 injection. Moderna and Pfizer released mRNA or modified mRNA injections after the shot harmed her in 2020 in a 2020 clinical trial, it says. AstraZeneca tried to get the suit dropped by playing the PrEP Act card, but U.S. District Judge Robert J. Shelby ruled otherwise. While it is still true that Dressen cannot sue AstraZeneca for her actual injuries, remember, America, that Big Pharma is the only industry that cannot be held liable for injuries caused by its products. She can still sue the company for breach of contract. Quote, "The basis for Dressen's claim is a broken promise, not a countermeasure," Judge Shelby said. Dressen was administered a covered countermeasure, and she was warned that she may suffer from an adverse reaction. But the fact that she suffered from such reaction was not sufficient to ripen her claim. It says, quote, "Rather, she only had a claim because AstraZeneca made a contractual promise to her that happened to involve the effects of a covered countermeasure," unquote. It says, but we can't be held liable. In its defense, AstraZeneca submitted a theory via legal filings suggesting that the pharmaceutical industry needs to be shielded from all liability through the PrEP Act because otherwise vaccine companies will be less willing to quickly develop countermeasures during so-called public health emergencies. Dressen's lawyers successfully countered this theory by showing that enforcing the company's legal contracts achieves the same result. There's something taking place here also. I'm off the article now, but there's something here that is taking place in Congress as I'm recording this here today. This is taking place live over on the GOP Oversight YouTube channel. It is titled "Preparing for the Next Pandemic, Lessons Learned and the Path Forward." And they have a couple of people testifying. Again, it's a dog and pony show. There is no COVID. There's only injectable poison. There were 5G towers that had a negative impact on people's bodies and symptoms. Again, flu-like symptoms. There were people who ran out in the latter half of 2020 to inject themselves. They can't name a single ingredient of anything they've injected themselves with, and then they go back to Congress and actually stare at jabbed, damaged congressional individuals. Again, there's a Dr. Joyce who sits on the panel here in Congress in this particular committee. He looks like he's jab damaged. The right side of his face is paralyzed. I'm not kidding. The entire right side of this guy's face looks paralyzed. I don't know if he's always been that way. Don't know if he's had a stroke. Don't know what's happened. I could guess jab damage. But again, this is a huge issue. There's only 570 some odd people watching this right now. Again, it's a dog and pony show. Nothing's going to change until all of the truth comes out. But if people keep saying Wuhan virology lab and they just, shot this up in the air and people started to breathe it in, that's not the truth. There were biological weapons that were created at Fort Detrick in the United States, over in Ukraine, among other places, and China, and they were released on all of those continents, including ours, and injected in people in the shots that were distributed in 2019 and 2020, and the years after. That's the truth. But again, in all of these hearings and all of these speeches and all of these conventions that have taken place here over the last couple of months, haven't heard a word about any of the shots. Not a word. Robert Kennedy Jr. has been the only one to mention anything related to any of them. He's the only one. Everybody's dead quiet on the issue. So in conclusion, speaking of appointments, it's going to be interesting what happens with Robert Kennedy Jr. and what position he ends up holding and what job or task he's given. And hopefully, again, it is to clean house. That would be a beautiful thing. But for the love of God, can we please start telling the truth? Or at the very least, have knowledgeable people who know that viruses aren't real testify in Congress? Are we ever going to see that actually happen? We have to crush the pharmaceutical industry. We have to crush the medical industry and the medical schools. We have to get the lies out of all of these institutions. It's the only way we win. Kicking the can down the road isn't going to do it. That's just not going to help. More people are going to get caught in those spokes. More people are going to get hurt. And perpetuating these lies, of course, we're seeing all the mental breakdowns right now. That's part of the problem too. We have to start telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but. And we have to allow people to bring this information to the public. Because let's face it, many of us out here in the public know what the truth is. You're not going to hear from a politician, and you're certainly not going to hear from a school principal. I mean, that's the last place you're going to want to go for the truth, a school district. In fact, I have one more piece of audio to play. Let me play this very quickly, because I don't have a short memory, and I bet you don't either. We remember who was doing the loudest talking about all of the tyranny over the last 4 years. We know who was out there. We know who these people are. We know the individuals, again, that were standing up for our rights, and we were standing up for our own rights, and we were out here doing what we were doing, and we were screaming the truth, and we were being censored and shut down and 1,000 other things. But let's not forget some of the people who had the largest platforms who didn't say jack shit about the tyranny that was taking place over the last 4 years. Give Joe Rogan a listen right here in 3, 2, 1.
Out there. There's a lot of people that don't speak their mind. Do you know how many artists that have reached out to me that are like fucking hippies, man? Like artists, like musicians, comedians that thanked me for endorsing Trump because they can't do it. They said they want to, but they don't want to be attacked. They can't say it. They think the country's going in the wrong direction. They think that this control of social media by the government, which we would have had pretty much fully if it wasn't for Elon buying Twitter, that this is a dangerous precedent to set, whether it's a right-wing government or a left-wing government. And that what you see that's happening in the UK where people are being imprisoned for tweets and Facebook posts.
Yeah, in the UK is the part that's mind-bending about it.
Mind-bending. The whole thing is nuts, and it's a dangerous path that we were on. We were on that path. Trump has vowed to have free speech become a very important part of what he's standing for, and that this censoring of information needs to stop, and that we need to stop all government influence in what people have to say.
Yeah, look,
that alone.
That shouldn't be as revolutionary as it is.
I know, it should be a core tenet of what, I mean, it's essentially the First Amendment.
It's essentially the First Amendment. Essentially. No, not essentially. It is. It is. And we've been exercising it our whole lives in numerous avenues. But where was Joe Rogan 4 years ago? Where was he? I know he had a couple of establishment individuals on his show to talk about this, that, or the other. Robert Malone, 3-letter agency affiliations, etc., etc. I remember that Joe Rogan, again, got sick with COVID, quote unquote. He thinks COVID's real. Joke's on him. It doesn't exist. He got shed on, and then he got sick, or he got targeted by the Wireless Body Area Network, and then he became ill. And then he started taking all these drugs like ivermectin, and he said he was fine, and then everybody lost their minds like he was some prophet. People were out here saying this long before him. But where was he? He was behind a microphone, getting $500 million a year from Spotify, getting all his shekels to keep his mouth closed. I have a problem with him. We don't need to be hanging our hats on his show or any other show for that matter, certainly not his, and sitting around with our "What would Joe Rogan do" bracelet and slapping it on our wrist going, oh gosh, what's Joe going to say now? I can't wait for him to stand up for my essentially First Amendment rights. Give me a break. His mouth was closed the last 4 years by and large. He would have guests on, like Aaron Rodgers, who would come on and start questioning the establishment, and Joe would try to silence them. Yes, he'd give them the platform to talk, but he would get real nervous when they'd start telling the truth. Again, these are the kinds of people where the shooting starts, he's going to cut and run. He'll cut and run. I hunt elk. I'm a gun owner. I do this, I do that. No one's taking away my gun. Good for you. You're afraid to talk into a microphone. Imagine when a gun goes off next to his head and he's being shot at by somebody in an actual kinetic war. No chance. He wouldn't last a day. This is the kind of stuff that drives me up the wall only because I don't have a short memory. I remember that these people were silent on these issues. And he says, well, we were basically heading down that path of not having any free speech. Kitten, we were already there. People were getting their accounts nuked during Trump's administration. People were getting their online social media accounts nuked during Biden's entire administration. All of this came out in congressional hearings and FOIA requests. My books were being deleted off of Amazon, where I was documenting this information in that Storm series. But Joe Rogan doesn't know this because, he's too busy throwing kettlebells around and smoking dope and laughing with his comedian friends. Good for him. Good for him. Some of us have been out here trying to increase the consciousness of the American public more than he has. Again, he has a big audience. Congratulations. He has more money than he knows what to do with. Good for him. He's not that bright. Because when it comes to standing up for your own rights, he falls short. And now, of course, he's trying to rationalize his participation in this entire thing. I can't believe our rights were being taken away. We were heading down that path. We were already there. It was already happening. So again, remember these people. Remember these people going forward. They're going to try to play the hero. Like Amazing Polly's even said, again, these grifters, they swoop in and they try to, again, play the hero. And they try to, again, claim like they were out in front of everything, like the Brett Weinsteins of the world. Brett Weinstein would wear a handkerchief over his face and over his mouth like he was robbing a bank in a spaghetti western. He did that and then took pictures of himself doing that. But that's the guy we're supposed to listen to. Again, you have to be kidding me. Who are these people? Who are they? They're not very knowledgeable, and they're slow on the uptake, and they're all in the same club. So that club continues to exist. Doesn't matter who's in office, doesn't matter who's in the White House, doesn't matter if we have the Senate or the House or whatever else. These people are still out here. So we still have to pay attention to what they say, never be afraid to call them out for what they've done in the past and how slow they were on the uptake. And let's just keep pressing forward here. That's what we've got to do. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, again, lots to pay attention to, a lot of moving parts in this chess game, no doubt about it. And we'll just keep watching it and do our best. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you for listening. Have a great weekend. I'll catch you on Monday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.